Kevin Sampson, Pixelock. I'm here with Olivia, and Olivia, you have a nice quilt that's hanging up.
Thank you.
In, what would we call this?
I guess the gallery space of DC Web Fest. Yeah.
Awesome. Can you tell us a little bit about the quilt and how you created it?
Definitely. My quilt is a combination of textiles that I printed from a line of code, which prints basically a pattern that is very aesthetically pleasing. I did 9 different patterns and decided to display them via a quilt because it's such a traditional method of displaying fabric. They are beautiful, you know, when you interact with them, but there is such a deeper story behind each pattern. And so when you dig into that story, you can see my process, which I am happy to talk about.
Yeah, definitely. So now, did you actually sew the quilt together, or how exactly does that work, going from the computer to what's now on the wall?
So the quilt itself, I worked with 2 other friends of mine to produce. Probably 20 man-hours behind the scenes to produce this one quilt, which is not quite bed size. It's meant for a wall hanging. And the quilt itself is a Fibonacci sequence, which is a traditional mathematical equation. And what you see on the wall is a golden rectangle, repeated. It's basically the square of squares. So when you see the output, you can see the iteration of each of these squares in the sequence. It makes a beautiful quilt because there is a pattern that you can really see as an observer. And each of the fabrics, 9 different patterns were produced using a line of code that I ran through an emulator from Commodore 64, which is an old school technology, but really fun to play around with, kind of returning to an old tradition, which is exactly what quilts are as well. So returning to an old tradition and merging both technology and crafting in these 2 methods.
Now, question, what does it mean for you just to have your quilt here at DC Web Fest? And I've never seen a quilt at a festival before,
So when I found out about this event and was invited to come, what they really wanted me to express, I think, was this digital side with media. And so merging the 2 as something that is curated and on the wall, but tells a deeper story about both women, computation, textile production, and just kind of museum curating in general. You know, this is hanging on the wall, but it tells such a deeper story that is digitally mediated at the same time.
And Olivia, where can people find you or your work?
So my work can be seen on digiprint.co. I have a website, and feel free to explore more about it.
All right, awesome. Thank you so much for coming on.